What I'm going to reveal has the potential to upend your current understanding of Ripple XRP and the future of the US financial system. Information, schedule, and insider maneuvers are converging. Something enormous is being hinted at, larger than the approval of any exchange-traded fund, more significant than any victory in court. Based on current events, XRP may form the basis of the next financial reset in the United States. Your money isn't being advised here. Pay attention because I'm saying this for a reason. For years, Ripple has been secretly laying the groundwork for a new banking system in the United States, and you will see why by the time you finish reading this. Possibly one that is already involved with Trump's inner circle and the upcoming financial revamp in the United States. Prior to delving further, the XRP Millionaire Blueprint lays out everything you need to know, including a visual representation of the interconnections between these movements, the filings, the partnerships, the timing, and the strategy. See the pinned comment down below the video for the answer, a video walkthrough that connects all the pieces together and shows you what's really happening behind the scenes is included with the whole blueprint, documents, infographics, and more. You should go see it immediately after this. And now we can get down to brass tacks. Presented here is what is plainly seen. No longer is Ripple merely another cryptocurrency startup. It's developing into something substantially larger. A U.S. banking infrastructure that will be the backbone of future generations. The timing seemed almost too perfect to be coincidental after years of laying this groundwork. What's happening across Africa right now will serve as our starting point. In order to facilitate actual payment rails throughout the continent, Ripple introduced its stablecoin RLUSD, which is backed by the US dollar. They aren't doing laboratory tests. These relationships are active with Yellow Card, Cyphercast, and Valor. These businesses are transferring actual wealth from one nation to another. This is what's really crazy. There have been several tests of Ripple's XRP ledger against regulatory regimes throughout Africa. Ripple is practicing, not merely experimenting, according to it. Anywhere, even inside the US, you can activate the systems they're running. Give that some thought. With its low-cost trains, high-volume remittances, and nearly non-existent legacy banking infrastructure, Africa stands out as a continent that can innovate. An international payment system sandbox would be ideal here. The identical mechanism that Ripple is establishing allows the same rails to light up quickly in other places once they are confirmed there. Now let's return to reality, because Ripple has been quietly entering the U.S. banking system as everyone else is fixated on price charts. Brad Garlinghouse confirmed it publicly. The U.S. banking charter, OCC license, and Federal Reserve Master account have all being sought after by Ripple. Cryptography isn't usually that complex. That's like walking into the heart of the American banking system. Brad clarified in an interview that Ripple has no intention of displacing banks. The purpose of it is to combine blockchain technology with conventional banking. Our stance is not anti-regulation, he declared emphatically. We are seeking the correct path. You don't use that terminology when you're rebelling against governments. It's used for negotiations. Seems obvious. No, Ripple isn't groveling for approval. It's getting ready to be accepted. And this is the most absurd part. In October, Ripple's official National Trust Bank status filing was supposed to be reviewed. October is meant to be filled with what else? Government closure. So, aside from the most pressing matters, practically everything in Washington comes to a standstill. Picture this then. Everything runs behind schedule, aside from a single item. Act for greater clarity. Additionally, XRP has the potential to become the sole cryptocurrency in the U.S. with complete legal clarity if that bill is passed. Now you must assemble those parts. There will soon be a liquidity crisis. Quick, safe, and easily expandable cash is required by the Treasury, something that can swiftly traverse international borders. That digital asset is integrated with Ripple's enterprise-grade technologies, has been tested with regulators, and is already in use by worldwide institutions. XRP value. From a distance, each move appears to be a piece of a larger checkerboard. The pilots from Africa, starting the stablecoin, a charter for banks, how long the federal shutdown lasted. This is not anarchy. Coordination is key, and that's not all. A major internal move at Ripple makes news as this all happens. Veteran Chief Technology Officer David Schwartz is leaving Ripple. Instead of being involved in the day-to-day construction of the ecosystem, he will be taking on a board role and supervising the project. Why is that important? Builders depart once the foundation is completed. The institutions are allowed to move in by the architects once the building is completed. Take a look at this year's swell conference lineup from Ripple. At this point, a financial Avengers squad is beginning to take shape. The NASDAQ, this is BNY Mellon, the investment firm BlackRock, Citi. In a bitwise fashion, JP Morgan Chase, group from CME. This is VanEck. True devotion, these sponsors are not chosen at random. The conventional backbone of finance, liquidity, and custody is controlled by these banking behemoths. Consider the following. Why would Ripple's event suddenly attract so many players? This year in particular, following Ripple's announcement of a stablecoin, application for a bank license, and the departure of its chief technology officer, CTO, the company has achieved new regulatory advances. There has been a handoff of responsibility. A founder is no longer essential to Ripple's operation. Building on existing infrastructure requires a vast network of institutions. Indeed, it appears that this is taking place. This is where everything comes together on a national level. So I want you to imagine it in your mind's eye. Speculation has begun to circulate amongst Trump administration officials that the president is laying the framework for a quantum banking system, reorganizing the United States debt and payments in a big way. A digital asset that is required to run such a system must not be untested, expensive, or sluggish. It must be quick, compatible with regulations around the world, and scalable. It can only be just one digital content, XRP value. Let your mind wander to the headlines that would shake every market to its foundation. As part of its new quantum financial strategy, the United States is using the XRP infrastructure to handle debt payments. The next day, that would be unheard of. A new monetary system relies on Ripple as its primary liquidity engine. Something else occurs at the very moment that the story is picking up steam. A member of the Trump family named Eric makes an appearance on Fox Business stating, quote, that cryptocurrency is quickly displacing traditional banking. No mention of could happen someday was made by him. It is happening right now, he said. Strong ties exist between the Trump family. They have knowledge of discussions that are kept secret until much later. Maybe that remark was a signal rather than a meaningless remark. The timing of his remarks coincided with the evaluation of Ripple's U.S. filings and the announcement of large institutions' attendance at Swell at a time when most people were scrolling past that headline. I can see it now. Aligning the layers. Ripple is a global leader in perfecting cross-border systems. Files for full banking integration at home. Prestigious organizations start to come in. Now that the groundwork is complete, the CTO may move aside. Everything gets delayed because of the U.S. government shutdown. Everything else is fine, except for the one thing that can finally clarify Ripple's legal situation. After that, Trump associates begin dropping hints that cryptocurrency, and perhaps this particular cryptocurrency in particular, is already displacing more conventional forms of financing. There you have it. Every piece has been placed on the board. Who knows, the following steps might be announced at the last minute, because XRP isn't your average cryptocurrency. If even a small portion of this works as planned, it has the potential to usher in a new era of money. Subtly, another development is taking place in the background as all of this unfolds, from stable coins to national banking licenses, Ripple's restructure to institutional takeovers. The fingerprints of Ripple are already visible deep throughout the banking architecture of America, even though the media headlines continue to argue about crypto regulation. Big names in traditional banking, including BNY Mellon, Citi, JP Morgan, and Fidelity, are suddenly teaming up with Ripple, the company that created the blockchain. These days, it's not simply about public collaborations or performing on stage. Liquidity corridors, settlement testing, custody solutions, and integration are all part of it. This is the same system of pipes that provides daily life to the world's financial system. None of that is conjecture. This is the underbelly of operational frameworks being set up. Do you recall when Brad Garlinghouse remarked that Ripple was connecting the old and new worlds? This is the truth. We have already constructed the bridge. At its core is XRP, the sole digital asset designed to facilitate the instantaneous transfer of value across borders, banks, and currencies. The major players are likely already setting themselves for the new financial era. Strategies for tokenized assets have been developed by BlackRock. In the background, Citi has been testing several various on-chain treasury solutions. Trust is paramount in cryptocurrency storage. For institutional settlements, JP Morgan has been honing its ONIX technology. However, Ripple's technology acts as connective tissue, bringing together all of these titans who are focusing on different aspects of the system. The entity that supplies the railroads will emerge victorious when all is said and done. In fact, that is precisely what Ripple is constructing. The ripple effect is something we should discuss. I mean it. Various corridors around the world have been tested by Ripple for quite some time: South America, Asia, the Middle East, and Japan. Every one of them was a potential connection in a network that might eventually form a seamless whole. Those parts are finally beginning to fit together. The corridors of Africa served as the dress rehearsal, the evidence that XRP can operate in accordance with central banks' regulations while also moving actual liquidity and functioning under many regulatory frameworks at the same time. The most important thing that is often overlooked: those hallways don't exist independently. These can be easily assembled. With the flick of a switch, liquidity is transferred to all of them at once. Additionally, transactions can be processed in seconds using the XRP ledger, as it is not dependent on miners or sluggish intermediaries. This is now unmatched on a global scale by any other significant settlement mechanism. The timing becomes intriguing at that point. Debt ceilings, liquidity shortages, and delayed settlements will no longer be solved by obsolete technology as the United States enters a new era. A financial system designed for immediate value transfer in the 1970s isn't up to the task of efficiently moving trillions of dollars. The Fed is aware of this, the Treasury is aware of this, banks are also aware of it. Picture this then. Inside the nation's capital, you are sitting in a meeting with closed doors. How to re-engineer the payment system's backbone is being discussed by Treasury officials, central bankers, and representatives from the biggest financial firms. SWIFT is no longer used. Sorry, FedEx has its limitations. Immediate payments are only available within the country. After then, a suggestion is put forth. Hundreds of financial institutions around the world are already connected through a blockchain-based settlement layer, one that can fluctuate liquidity in real time, is transparent, and can be audited. Ripple is that. XRP is that. Imagine now the political trajectory of such discussion. You'd have to find a way to advertise your system as being American-made, something that is already compatible. It had the support of the United States government. This is not a network reminiscent of the untamed West. That is an ideal description of Ripple. The company's leadership is American, and it works with regulators rather than against them. Only Ripple may be considered as a serious contender for the U.S. government's endorsement or even covert use of a digital asset for liquidity operations or debt management. The wild card is then added: a Trump perspective. Speculation and reports have been circulating that the country's monetary structure is being re-engineered and that a new quantum financial system is allegedly being developed as part of this plan. Whether you refer to it as that or just the updating of the Federal Reserve's payment network, the plan is in sync with what Ripple has created thus far. The timing is too coincidental to be disregarded. In 2025, there will be a convergence of several narratives surrounding the restoration of financial sovereignty, the government's liquidity issues, and Ripple's banking files. The president was not exaggerating when he warned that cryptocurrency is quickly displacing traditional banking. His description is spot on with what's going on behind the scenes. As a result, monetary systems are evolving, and XRP is situated smack dab in the middle of that shift. Let's dissect the possible operational aspects of that. Envision the U.S. Treasury utilizing Ripple's infrastructure to settle foreign payments. They transfer value using RLUSD, a tokenized representation of dollars, settled quickly against XRP liquidity pools, rather than wiring cash through sluggish correspondent banks. It takes only a few seconds for a bank in Japan to pay an exporter in Brazil. The XRP ledger mediates currency conversions without physically owning any of the underlying assets. When Ripple's network is up and running, that's how global liquidity might work. The power to transfer bonds, reserves, and debt becomes available as this scales. At that point, the story of the quantum financial reset makes sense. That's progress, not science fiction. Whoa, you might be wondering why the U.S. government would ever hire a private firm to do that. The answer is obvious. They are already doing it. From DTCC to SWIFT, all of the big names in financial infrastructure were formerly private companies that eventually became part of the system. Ripple is merely the subsequent development. When you lay the groundwork, the system will rely on you. That is the precise direction in which Ripple is moving. Another thread has to be connected. Instead of being a setback, David Schwartz's resignation as Chief Technology Officer, CTO, signifies the end of Ripple's technology stack. Imagine a rocket launch as an analogy. The engineers will exit the cockpit as soon as the engines have stabilized and the path has been locked. Rebuilding the ship in the middle of flight is unnecessary. Also, on the left side of the stage are some of the biggest names in finance, like BlackRock, Fidelity, and JP Morgan. These companies are experts in national and international integration, scalability, and custody. That is transition, not a coincidence. In the midst of all this positioning, Ripple's Swell Conference becomes a display of the financial industry's future. Blockchain developers and lawmakers sit side by side with the most recognizable names in the financial markets. Nothing like it has ever occurred on such a grand scale. Imagine for a second what follows incidents like these. Integration testing with groups related to the Federal Reserve or the Treasury, new pilot initiatives disclosed under wraps, and memorandums of understanding signed between payment networks and banks are all visible. There will be a gradual, managed launch. At the moment, we are in the midst of it. This is the last phase of infrastructure. We have started the onboarding process. Depending on your perspective, the government shutdown, the Clarity Act, or the timing of regulatory rulings could all be just delays. Pacing might be the cause, making sure everything is in sync so that the system doesn't crash during the switch-off. The elegance of Ripple's creation lies in that very thing. It's scalable, easily modifiable, and compliant. What this means is that they can safely activate liquidity corridors one location at a time. Underneath all the talk about crypto bans and ETF approvals, the action is happening. Instead than going up against speculative tokens, XRP is supplanting them as the backbone of international money transfers. Okay, now let's look at the future. After obtaining its National Trust Bank accreditation and achieving full U.S. clarity, Ripple will be able to retain deposits, issue loans, and offer custodial services. The same rights as any bank that is recognized by the federal government. When you add in its worldwide alliances and payment infrastructure, it becomes something truly unique. A blockchain-based organization that serves as a settlement network and liquidity hub for the whole financial system. Time is crucial for that reason. Ripple will no longer have to struggle for relevance if that status is approved. In this way, it connects digital assets, institutions, and central banks. The rumors around Trump's possible strategy resurface at that point. Why? Because implementing a unified plan to reorganize debt, stabilize liquidity, and usher in a new age of tokenized finance cannot be accomplished through the use of unproven, disjointed networks, something that has been in compliance for a long time and has the trust of institutions would be ideal. Ripple is the sole option that works. The way it's unfolding is almost lyrical. In what appeared to be a setback at first, the lawsuit ultimately provided Ripple with the paperwork, regulatory involvement, and transparency it required for top-level integration. The legitimacy they achieved was built upon the turmoil they endured. Every formerly distant institution is now offering to negotiate. No, this isn't only a setup for the next bull run. A new financial order is being set in motion with this. And we're keeping an eye on the first indications of that change as they happen, right along with Ripple's worldwide railroads and the United States' readiness to adopt new frameworks. The testing, the collaborations, the announcement timing, for the simple reason that it will not roll out slowly after the switch is flipped. Like the internet's meteoric rise from cool to essential, it will happen all at once. Files, bank charters, clear rules, and institutional moves should all be carefully monitored. These are not unrelated occurrences. They're all working together to go to the same place. Another aspect of this story, the geopolitical one, starts to emerge once that destination is revealed. Reason being, other countries aren't sitting on their hands as Ripple positions itself in the U.S. rival digital currencies, such as the Chinese yuan and the euro, as well as international coalitions, are vying for dominance in the next generation of international currency. However, Washington and Wall Street will only trust one system. As a result, Ripple's placement is crucial in this context. The focus of the next chapter shifts from banking and payments to global monetary power, Forming battle lines are already apparent. One camp is the United States, and its allies shift toward tokenized dollars, which are digital tokens representing fiat currency and can be immediately transferred across both public and private networks. Conversely, China is moving swiftly with its digital yuan, incorporating it into trade deals throughout the aforementioned regions. In the middle of it all, there's Ripple, the stealthy go-between that has established links to both. Almost every major financial location is connected to RippleNet's working corridors. The Belt and Road trade routes in China intersect with some of these corridors. Thus, Ripple's rails may serve as an unbiased link between rival digital currency systems regardless of intent. XRP's strategic value lies in that fact. It's more than a token. It's a mechanism for the transfer of value that transcends the politics of currency. And consider the time frame once more. The technology behind Ripple's CBDCs has already been through the ringer, but central banks are rushing to create their own. Countries can keep using their own currencies if they so choose. That way they can work together. Because of its technical superiority, lack of bias, and readiness to act as a bridge layer after the smoke clears, Ripple can be considered the Switzerland of global payments. What does this mean for the United States now? For the simple reason that a Senate hearing or trial will not decide the fate of the new global financial system. Ultimately, it will come down to whichever infrastructure can transfer funds the quickest and safely. In order to maintain its dominance, the U.S. cannot depend on a system as antiquated as SWIFT, which is 50 years old. Something fresh is required, something that is American-made and can be ready right now. Exactly, that is what Ripple provides. This may also provide light on the reason behind the abrupt change from defensive to confident rhetoric from the organization this year. They seem to be aware that the end is in sight. It seems like every partnership speech and file is leading up to a single reveal. Some feel it, you know. Brad Garlinghouse has outgrown his role as CEO of a startup. He sounds like a statesman, someone who represents a cornerstone of the financial system of the future. Bank executives, lawmakers, and regulators are all in attendance at the meeting between Ripple's top brass. They have stopped pleading for approval. The plan is being shaped by them. It becomes crystal clear when you step back. The launch of the stablecoin in Africa demonstrates its usefulness. Legality is confirmed by the filings of the banking charter. Scalability is provided by the institutional collaborations. Further adding to the sense of urgency is the confluence of geopolitical factors such as debt restructuring, liquidity difficulties, and the implementation of CBDCs. The only thing lacking is the switch. Liquidity will change in an unprecedented manner once that switch is flipped. The ledger tracks every step with military-grade transparency, settlements happen in seconds, and trillions flow through new digital pipelines. Imagine for a second the consequences when such technology underpins payments at the sovereign level, everything from bond settlements to treasury transactions, and the movement of liquidity from central banks goes through the same mechanism. In that universe, XRP demand isn't just hypothetical, it's not human-made. It's the oil in the that's why time counts so much. For the simple reason that these shifts take place in secret, in pilot programs, and during secret clearance meetings that are never reported in the mainstream media. Then, early one morning, word gets out, just one headline, just one official's word from the government. What was once mere conjecture is now the new normal, similar to how the internet revolutionized global communication. Throughout that time, no one paid attention. Then all businesses, transactions, and conversations began to revolve around it. Value will soon undergo a similar transformation. And as we near that moment, keep an eye out for these last clues. Obtaining Ripple's National Trust Bank license has been the first and foremost official step. That means Ripple can officially join the U.S. system as a custodian bank and liquidity provider. Second, XRP would be officially recognized by U.S. law if the Digital Asset Clarity Act were to be passed or introduced. Institutional doors open at that point. Finally, the third point is that officials from the government and the Federal Reserve will be attending Ripple's next worldwide event. Everything will end when that occurs. A new beginning has begun with the actual integration. Do not expect weeks' notice. Time will fly by. When the power goes on, only those who are familiar with the system's wiring will be there. The significance of establishing these connections has grown as a result. We are witnessing the implementation of Ripple's plan firsthand, in policies, collaborations, and precise timing, not in pricing charts. Everything is falling into place, the groundwork is laid, and the world is getting ready to enter a new monetary era. This isn't going to be another crypto bull run, that's why. Money itself is being redefined. Those who have been keeping tabs know that this isn't your average chance for success. This is the making of history. You must be aware by now that the XRP narrative isn't based on hype if you have continued reading. The topic at hand is infrastructure. The outcome will depend on whoever constructs the system that the world will rely on for the subsequent century, built by Ripple. By the time the switch is turned on, it will be too late to play catch-up. Be alert, maintain your concentration, and get ready for the next stage of this transition. Why? Because the new financial rails will completely alter our understanding of value, speed, and power the moment they go live. The XRP Millionaire Blueprint graphically displays all the relevant information, including deadlines, filings, collaborations, and potential events that could cause XRP to take action. It's in the remark that's been pinned underneath this video. It contains the complete breakdown, the complete strategy guide, including with supporting documents and infographics, lays out the steps necessary for XRP to establish itself as the cryptocurrency of the future.